Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And good morning and good evening for those of our audience who are following us online. My name is Khalid Shirgholami. We are talking to you from IPIS headquarters in Tehran. Today, do you have my voice? Okay. Yeah. Today I have the privilege to be moderating this online panel, which is part of the TDF community of the discussions, Tehran Dialogue Forum. This is an online panel discussion. You know that on June 13th, the Zionist regime of Israel, in a flagrant act of aggression, carried out a series of aggression and strikes against the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran, targeting the peaceful nuclear facilities of Iran, some other civilian infrastructure of the country, some residential areas in Tehran, killing innocent people and scientists and university professors. And this is still an ongoing debate among the practitioners of international relations and foreign policy and security policy. There are many questions and challenges in the minds of many experts worldwide, and today we are privileged to have a group of prominent experts in this online panel to have an Iranian narrative about what happened, what is the situation, what is the Iranian reading about this aggression, which subsequently followed by American aggression against Iran on June 22nd. Let me first of all introduce our prominent experts in the panel. We have Dr. Saeed Khatibzadeh, the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran and President of IPIS. I am also honored to have Dr. Nasser Hadian, University Professor in Tehran University, a senior expert on international relations and especially American foreign policy. And we do have also Professor Kazem Sajadpour. He is also University Professor in the School of International Relations and prominent expert on foreign policy and international politics. I extend my welcome to you all, dear panelists, and also my colleagues here who are listening to us in person, and also all online audiences worldwide. Let me start with Dr. Saeed Khatibzadeh. Dr. Khatibzadeh, tell us what happened. There was a negotiation process going on, and everybody was expecting about the final result of that negotiation process. What happened?
Well, thank you very much. Let me first thank you for organizing this and also recalling the high memories of our martyrs and those who were sacrificed in their lives in defense of our beloved country, Iran, in these 12 days of aggression against our country. I think your departure point is very important. What exactly happened is very important. As you said, we were in the middle of negotiations. As probably you remember, we were in Oslo the day before the attack started. We were in Oslo exchanging many messages between our chief negotiator, foreign minister, Dr. Araqchi, and U.S. envoy Mr. Witkoff. There was even some suggestion that there might be possible even to have some sort of encounter and exchange, even in Oslo. We were so close to such a breakthrough. And finally, both sides decided to meet 48 hours later in Muscat. A few foreign ministers from the region were in Oslo, and we also had some side meetings with them, and we briefed them about everything, including Foreign Minister of Egypt, Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, and Oman. And I think our Omanis friends know to what extent we were so close in some breakthrough in our negotiations, a negotiation which was supposed to bring back a balance to a sort of agreement between Iran and the United States to address their so-called non-proliferation concerns that they do have, or they do had, and or that they did have, and also our main reason entered into negotiation, which was termination of all sanctions in hand. We arrived midnight in Tehran, Friday night, and I remember that few hours later, the Israeli regime started and launched an aggression on our country, and started with assassination of off-duty commanders of Iran who were sleeping, who were just with their families, their wives and their children, and also our academics who were in the middle of night and just with their families. And it was a shocking moment for everybody, and for those who were interested in diplomacy. That aggression was not just aggression on buildings, on lives of Iranian people, which of course very much matter, but it also was an aggression against the very principle of international law, and the very principle of morality, and the very principle of diplomacy. Israelis started this aggression by targeting our nuclear sites, which were under IAEA constant monitoring and were safeguarded under NPT. And also then they continued to assassinate, kill civilians, target hospitals, schools, and residential areas. So what happened, just encapsulate what you said, was a turning point. Was a turning point for those who look at international law, for those who follow international politics, and for Iran. That was a momentum for Iran also to look at many aspects of its foreign policy and foreign relations, which I believe for great extent is going to have very deep implications for Iran and for region and for our region.
What is quite unique is the fact that a nuclear power, which is a party to NPT, and a regime which has obtained nuclear weapons, which is non-NPT member, have attacked a country which is a party to NPT, a responsible NPT member, and all facilities, nuclear facilities, under the safeguards of the IAEA. This is quite unique, and there has been many debates in recent years about what sort of international order we do have. Is it a bipolar one? Is it multipolar one? Is it post-polar, maybe world order? What sort of order then we have in this sort of, disorder or the jungle that some people are talking about, and the fact that what happens to the non-proliferation regime under such circumstances?
Khalil, don't forget that it was not just an attack by Israeli. It was a coordinated aggression on Iran by two nuclear states and nuclear players, United States and Israel. Now there are many reports out that it was very much coordinated. Not only the statements made by President Trump himself, but many reports that are indicating that many months in advance and also few days in advance, Pentagon and other US organizations not only were informed but also briefed President of the United States on this. So we have to be very careful that what happened was a aggression by two nuclear states on Iran, or two nuclear powers on Iran. You remember in 1981 when there was a attack on a simple building which was supposed to later on being used as a nuclear facility. It was an empty building in Iraq. When Israelis did this reckless aggression against Iraq and they bombed that building, there was a unanimous resolution condemning Israelis' aggression on that very moment. This time, they attacked not only our nuclear sites, they attacked the nuclear sites which were active for peaceful programs that Iran had, and also filled with different infrastructures and nuclear centrifuges and so on and so forth, and under IAEA monitoring. But not only IAEA, but also United Nations Security Council failed to have a simple condemnation of what was happened. So what we are just facing right now is a new phenomenon that everybody day by day are just absorbing, that there is no international law anymore protecting them. So what is now is a valid question is about NPT itself. Iran is a signatory to NPT and one of the founders of Non-Proliferation Treaty, which were attacked by a non-member of NPT, and NPT signatories failed to come out and publicly denounce this act of aggression. Let me tell you something. Iran is for many reasons, for strategic reasons, for religious reasons, because of fatwa and other things, Iran is very much committed to just peaceful use of nuclear energy. But now there is a huge question that to what extent Non-Proliferation Treaty can serve the interest of those who are following the merit and words of this NPT, which is a very live debate right now in Iran. You see what is going on in Iran's parliament, all the resolution and the provisions which have been passed with a great majority of MPs in the parliament and also in the media. So now, if you just follow what is happening in other think tanks around the globe, you see those who are active in non-proliferation think tanks and disarmament think tanks. They are also questioning the merit and words of NPT, which is going to be an open question for years to come.
Let me turn to Professor Hadian. Why this war occurred, Professor Hadian, and what has been the objectives of the Israeli regime in going for this war, and why the United States intervened, and then why the United States himself went for the ceasefire later on?
Thank you very much, Khalil, for inviting me to such an important and significant webinar. In answering your question, I guess a number of factors were important for Israel in order to attack Iran. The most important one being they thought Iran is weak. Can you hear me? They thought Iran is weak, and that's the best at the last chance to stop Iran. The perception was Iran is basically getting very close to building a bomb, or to be called a threshold state.
Merci.
Thus, that was a very important factor for attacking Iran.
Yes.
Number two, they thought there is someone in the White House that they can influence him better. they can, I don't want to say shape his perception and decision, but they thought that, they can influence it a lot to the extent that, make him not only to giving green light, as Saeed mentioned to me, I mean, they were very much a part of this aggression. They were able to convince him the cost is not very high, and there are a number of benefits for you, including to be able to claim victory. So I guess Trump bought the argument and involved US forces basically in the attack. The third element is they thought Iranian population are very much dissatisfied with the government to the extent that they may welcome such aggression. And they thought if they damage or destroy the coercive resources of the state, then the population will rise up and bring down the government. So that was very important, another important element of the strategic calculus of the Israelis. Also, as I said, that the main objective was getting rid of the Iranian threat permanently. In order to achieve that objective, they had different strategies. Number one was regime change. Regime change was not objective, it was a strategy. In order to achieve the objective of removing the Iranian threat forever. Number two is damaging the missile and nuclear capabilities of Iran by destroying important sites, nuclear sites, missile sites, launchers, so forth and so on. Also, they thought that they can strengthen their intelligence and operational resources inside Iran by doing so in their strategic calculus. I'm not telling about the reality of what happened, but I'm talking about the calculus. So that was, these were the reasons that they attacked Iran. Can I continue for the Americans too?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Why the United States intervened in this?
Okay. So to me, for 3-4 days, Israelis were to a large extent successful in attacking Iran, damaging the morale of the armed forces of Iran, and presenting a narrative of victory to the world. And also presenting this narrative in a very articulated way to Donald Trump. They convince him, if you join the fight now, if you join the war now, with almost no cost, we can get the credit of you are the one who have solved the Iranian threat and Iranian problem. And I guess President Trump bought the argument. Although some of his supporters, MAGA supporters, were not satisfied with US intervening in such a war, because that was very much a part of his campaign. And he was opposing the endless wars of the previous presidents. So they were arguing that why don't intervene first. And once intervene, they began to question the wisdom of joining the Israelis for such an attack. In the words of Richard Haas, a very influential Republican, he said that by involving in such a war, now you have to be at the mercy of the Iranians' response. How they're going to respond? Why did you put yourself in such a position? So I guess then he came to the conclusion, he came to the understanding that this war can be an endless war again. If Iran attack American bases, and to be frank with you, it was far easier for Iran to attack American bases than attacking Israel. Because attacking Israel would take 9-10 minutes for our missiles to get there. It's about 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 kilometers. But the American bases are only 300-400 kilometers away from Iran. And it is far easier to attack them. It would take 2-3 minutes for our missiles to get there. And we had all those missiles intact. Thanks God, the Iranians were smart enough that responded very proportionately and in a very measured way. It was not a disproportionate response. We informed them. We informed the Qataris, and through Qataris, the Americans, that that's what we're going to do. It is important that why we did it. We could have not responded. That would have been a good choice too. Personally, I would have supported that choice of not responding. Because then we were in a position that to respond in a time of our choosing and in a place of our choosing. And the kind of attack also depends on us. Exactly what Richard Haas said. But anyway, we decided to respond. And we responded proportionately. Why that is important? Strategically. You know, we have to discuss that attack at the strategic level, at the military level, at the political media level. I guess at the strategic level, we were successful. It doesn't matter at all. Militarily, it is important that how many of our missiles hit the base, its targets. That's a military. But the strategic risk is very different. Strategically, what is important is our will to respond. Many countries have the capability to respond to America, but they don't have the will to respond. We showed that we are ready and we responded. Thank you. So they know that the next time we may not inform anyone that we are going to attack, but we indicated clearly to them that even in a friendly country of Qatar, we will respond. So that strategic message was very important. That's what it was translated in a plain language for Trump to understand. But the next time, situation can be very different. So that was a strategic response. At the military level, I'm not a military analyst, but what I can say by reading different sources, it was not a very significant military response. We fired about 14 missiles, and I guess a few of them hit the ground. We don't have the assessment of the damage, but I guess what they did militarily was more important than what we did to them. But at the political level and the media level, I guess we both failed. Both the Americans and Iranians failed. We were not able to convince our audience that that proportionate response was good enough. So at the political level, then we couldn't sell our narrative. Americans failed as well. They were not able to convince the audience that, they achieved their objectives. Even the Pentagon, in their initial report, the Intelligence Bureau of the Defense Department announced or said that in a report, at most we might have postponed the program a few months, 4 or 5 months. So they were not, Trump, no matter how much hard he tried, and how hard he tried, he was not able to sell that narrative that they have obliterated our nuclear program.
Thank you.
Particularly for welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Sajadpour, against this backdrop of the Israeli calculations that Professor Hadian tried to elaborate, how do you evaluate this calculation and maybe miscalculations of the Israelis? And they do claim that they are the winner side of this war. What is your account of this?
First of all, let me thank Scott for giving us this opportunity to be here again to have a very interesting discussion, and thank him for giving us such a very wonderful and solid country, and thank you for inviting me. In response to your question, I think what we can really explain the Israeli action is what German Chancellor said. He said, dirty work. He said, Israel is doing the dirty work for us. I think if anything is right in German politics, this is the candid reflection of their intention. So Israeli action was dirty in 3 ways. First, intention. Intention was dirty because it was not just against nuclear facilities of Iran or this type of pronouncement that we hear from them. It was against the totality of Iran as a country. So this is where all boundaries are broken, and let's say at the heart of their strategy, their intention, if you can read, is this integration of our country. So this is a very dirty intention. Second, in the way that they acted, it was also dirty. Killing people, ordinary people, bombing hospitals, assassinating nuclear scientists, bombing Iranian TV, and all these sorts of actions which by all calculation and all legal frameworks are dirty. And I think the third way that it was dirty was the consequences that they were searching for. The consequence was a type of chaotic situation in Iran when you kill the military leadership, and as we know, they had also planned for other elites of Iran, political elites of Iran. They wanted Iran to be in a chaotic situation. I think all what I said is equated with dirty work. But now, how Iran responded? I think Iran, it's not because my country is at stake here. I think analytically, if we speak, we have to identify how Iran really acted. I think three features of Iran make Iran a decent actor here. First, Iran was able to restore itself within few hours. This type of restoration of confidence, restoration of institutions, restoration of capabilities, I think is unique in the wars that we had in human history. Within few hours, we not just restored it. The second point is that we responded. I think Iranian response within few hours was maybe not what they're thinking of, and they try to downplay it. But I think, as we know of today, the suggestion for ceasefire came, of course, from the American side to some of the leaders in the Persian Gulf. But the rationale for it was that they were losing, they were witnessing a situation which we're not thinking of, and it was because of Iranian response. And I think the third, which is maybe more interesting, is resurrection of Iranian nationhood. Iran united. Iranians showed one of the most historical moments of their long few millennium history. Contrary to their planning, contrary to their dirty thinking, Iran stood united. And Iran, I think Iranians and Iran, and I have really to appreciate the role of Iranians outside Iran, with a very small minority which are always in different wars, they act as agents of the aggressor. I think the majority of Iranians outside Iran, from all colorful set of thinking and political orientation, as well as Iranians inside, said no to the aggression. And I think this no and negativity marks Iranian history with significance in the years and centuries to come. The other dimension of Iranian resurrection was yes, we defend our country. Yes, you attack our country and we defend. And I think this sense of defense is very interesting, and I think contrary to their planning. I think their planning was, if I want to sum up, was based on maybe 3 C's. C, confidence building of Iran. They wanted to crush Iranian self-confidence, which is a very unique historical byproduct of many sacrifices during decades. Second, they wanted to smash Iranian capabilities in defending itself, which I think Iran, contrary, of course, we had some losses, up to 1,000 Iranians were killed, buildings were destroyed. We don't want to ignore the damage, and actually we have really to be careful to what they have done, but Iran remained capable of, let's say, defending itself and be very precise. And now when you read the analysis these days, you see they somehow wanted, as they said publicly, we want Iranian capabilities to be wiped up. But now we see Iran has capability. And capability is not just materialistic. And here I go to the third C, which they planned for. And that was smashing Iranian cohesion. And you see that Iran became more cohesive in this response. There is a saying in a strategic literature that the starters of the war are losers. Saddam Hussein started the war against us. Finally, he is where? You can guess. And I think we have a madman in the Middle East, that is Netanyahu. And don't think that everything that Israel is doing is just the nation or, let's say, the establishment. It's a part of it, a good chunk of it is very personal. That is Netanyahu, for its own survival, for his name to be written in the history as, you know, the man who was the architect of let's say, Israel's security, as he said, after the second independence war. He wants to remain in history, and he is a madman. And he thinks that due to some of the capabilities that it is provided to Israel by United States, he can be the hegemon of the region. Let me here have couple points and finish. I think if you look at the strategic thinking of Israel and Netanyahu, the major challenge that Israel has not been to solve that today, during last 80 years, almost 80 years of its establishment, is the Palestinian issue. And it seems there is a deadlock on it. There is no way out of this crisis. And wars, everything which has happened is reflecting the pivotality of the Palestinian crisis. And Netanyahu wants to somehow deflect the attention from this crisis. Exactly at the same time that it was bombing Iran, I think they killed maybe more Palestinians in Gaza in the same time. So the issue is just deflecting a crisis which is very structural, not solvable not due to Palestinians, due to the mentalities of these people like Netanyahu. And the second point is Israeli desire for military hegemony in the region, which in the strategic literature is called a strategic edge. They want to keep this edge. And here Israel is not alone. Let me say that this war, yes, it was very different war with other wars. We were not neighbors by geography. It was a war by technology and new modes of warfare. But it was also a very asymmetrical war. Asymmetrical. And I'm not using the asymmetrical war in the sense of, let's say, guerrilla war or this type of activities. Look, here is Iran. The other side is not just Israel. It's Israel plus United States. And United States publicly, privately, and practically is in this war by bombing Iranian facilities and giving, as we know today, there are also, during the course of these 12 days, American supplies were somehow poured to Israel in a massive way. So you see, it's asymmetrical. You have a regional power like Iran, then you have a global power, and its proxy, Israel, engaging in this war. And here, really, you have to appreciate this country, my country, which has been able to contain this madman in such a way. And I think this is very important. So to end, Israel did a dirty job, and it remains in history. And the West was with this dirty job, very new. West exposed itself. And I think on the other side, Iran was really responding, restoring its confidence, and reviewing itself, responding in a very decent way.
Thank you. Before going for the second round of questions, some of our audience, online audience, they do have some questions, and I would be privileged to take some of the questions later on. and my technical colleagues will let me know if it's possible to hear their voice or only we can have their written, let's say, questions. Maybe we can, take 2-3 questions of the online audience with respect. Dr. Khatibzadeh, let me merge 2-3 questions to take our time. There is this narrative that Iran has shown to be quite vulnerable and volatile with regard to this aggression, to lose some infrastructure, to lose some of the commanders, university professors, scientists, And the Iranian reaction to the strikes having quite weak, or even with regard to the reaction to the American aggression, some people say that it has been meaningless. How do you evaluate that? And the next question is that what would be the Iranian reaction if the Israeli side resumed the aggression? How do you evaluate?
Well, thank you very much. I think that the questions that you raised, plus some of the issues that were raised by other panelists, need some clarification. If you allow me, I would like to give some feedback on that. Now, on this misargument of Iran's weakness. No, there is an active fear factory always going on Iran for many decades. At least for many years, for many decades, today Prime Minister of Israeli regime, calling Iran a nuclear threat that is going to achieve nuclear weapon in a matter of weeks, months, and from 90s he's just claiming that. And based on this fear factory, they have tried to divert the main focus from the main root cause of all the problems in this region, which is the Israeli regime and the issue of Palestine, to Iran. Recently, they have changed the narrative toward this misargument that Iran is weak because Iran's response has been measured and predictable. The response is very clear. Iran is a state. Iran is a nation. We have been always here for millennia. We are patient. We are chess players. And we know how to advance our political agenda and our goals in a strategic way, I can say. But if those who are trying to sell this to President Trump and the others, that Iran's measured response are a sign of weakness, they are selling a very dangerous misargument to President Trump. Because the moment that Iran feels that there is an existential threat to Iran, Iran will definitely be a different Iran. Will not act measuredly, will not act predictably, and Iran would respond with all means that it has and in a very different manner that nobody can imagine. Just think about the moment that Israelis attacked our energy infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. That moment, the moment that Iran decided to target Haifa, and that was a very strong signal. And those who understand Iran's messages, they understand why Iran targeted the main CENTCOM base in Qatar. It was a very strong message. They may expected that Iran respond in Iraq or somewhere else. But Iran decided to respond to a Qatari base, the American base in Qatar, which they always argue that it is under US jurisdiction and not Qatari jurisdiction, as other bases that they do have in other countries in this region, just to send this very signal. We are ready. And sometimes you hear that President Trump say that we sent messages, in advance. Yes, as we got messages in advance. So I think that mature players know that public statements cannot help, God forbid, if that day come, Iran would reveal all its means and capacities. And everybody should know that Iran's response is based on our assessment of the situation of the day. And I'm not a military person, but I am assured that all the responses have been articulated. As you saw, that when they attacked and did this act of aggression against Iran's top military people, off-duty commanders, and I would like to mark it as a historical fact that they attacked our commanders cowardly, assassinated them in the middle of night, not in the situation room, not in war room, not in front line. This is the nature of this terrorist organization, this cult that they call it Israel. They are the best in assassinating. They claim that. I'm not going to challenge that. But if you ask about the winning, if winning means that killing innocent people, dozens of Iranian children, 60,000 more plus of Gazans, probably this butcher of Gaza is the winner. But if winning is to be able to achieve a strategic goal, definitely Israel is the loser. First of all, now it is clear for everybody that Iran is not a small country. Iran is a country of 90 million people. And when I say 90 million people, I'm just comparing a civilization to the factory-based entity which they call it Israel. Very divided people coming from different parts of the world, and based on apartheid ideology of Zionism trying to just mobilize their base, not as Iranians to show that there are 90 million populated country. Just compare this and you understand. We know our shortcomings, but also we know with self-confidence our strengths. So we are not very much moved by these sort of assassinations. Just as a matter of few hours, Iran showed that we do have a full army. Thousands of commanders are ready. And full army means that any surprise attack whatsoever can be responded in a very meaningful way, as we did. Of course, we are always for peace. This is our strategy. For more than 200 years, we have never attacked or invaded any other countries. For more than 200 years, actually. But we know how to end an aggression. And this is a very strong message to those who coordinated this aggression. This is the choice. I mean, this is Americans' choice to enter in a respectful way, or think about of somebody's war, being dragged into that, and start an endless war for everybody. And let me also be clear on this point, that what United States did was unforgivable and unforgettable, grave aggression on Iran. It was the first time that US, by a very bad miscalculation, launched such an aggression on Iranian soil, which was violation of Iran's territorial integrity. And those who condemned this were on the side right of history, because they knew very much that this is not a chain which stops on Iran. If they fail to understand that international law based on UN Charter just respect territorial integrity of other countries. And Americans should know that they have to compensate the grave mistake that they have done. Just also one thing that you ask about this winning, and you remember that President Trump tweeted that I'm looking for unconditional surrender.
Mm. Yeah.
The moment they sent the request for ceasefire was the end to this illusion that Iran is a country of surrender. We have been always here, and we are going always to be here. Iran, for millennia, has been master of survival. We have been under many aggression, numerous aggression in our history, but every time we have come up stronger and better. And this is the miracle of this country. And I'm sure that those who are familiar with the capacity and capabilities of this country can very much give the lesson 101 to those who are not familiar with the Iranian politics and society.
Yeah, and as an element of the controversy and dispute over the Iranian nuclear program, the Western countries questioned the level of enrichment in Iran. Why enrichment up to 60%? Why?
Did they discover that? Or Iran was reporting that 60% enrichment? Was it a hidden program? They discovered it in the middle of night or with their spies, or it was under IAEA monitoring and under IAEA inspectors. They even knew the grams of 60% of enriched uranium in Iran. They are misrepresenting this to make a source of pretext for their wrongdoing. Do not forget that we don't have two international laws. We have just one international law. No country on earth can attack another country out of legal or illegal concerns. That's it. Either you have a mandate to do something, or you are acting recklessly and in a rogue way. And what Americans did and what Israelis did was a grave violation and breach of international law. Iran, for many good reasons, had this very right for peaceful nuclear program or for any other reasons under NPT to do that. And it was not a hidden enrichment program. And it was a matter of discussion between us and the Americans. Let me be very clear. We are not always negotiate publicly, as the other side sometimes is doing. You hear what they are telling you during the past 48 hours. President Trump says some things, Mr. Witkoff says some other things. They are trying, obviously, to affect the outcome of any diplomatic process happens or not happening. It is not the way that we are doing. We are negotiating on the table that they torpedo. And let me just detail you on that. This enriched uranium was also a matter of discussion and negotiation between us and Americans and also E3. In many occasions, including these 5 rounds of negotiations that we had with Americans during the 9 weeks of negotiation which happened. And there were many noble ideas of how we can handle this if they have any concerns. Different types of and variety of ideas were discussed, and as I told you, Mr. Witkoff knows it very well, Omanis know it very well, and those who are familiar with the issue know that that was not any sort of concern for anybody except for those who are trying to misuse it in public sphere for very obvious reasons. Iran was very clear, transparent, reporting, doing everything under IAEA inspection and monitoring, and that was the sole reason that Iran was so transparent was because Iran was not up to nuclear weaponization of its program, and also was not up to developing and acquiring nuclear bombs. Still it is the case, and it's going to be the case for many reasons that probably we don't have enough time to go in more details. Maybe we can later on elaborate that.
Professor Hadian, let me read a question raised by one of our esteemed online audience. And I wish I had the name of the madam or gentleman who raised this question. I don't have. What is your evaluation and the evaluation in Tehran with regard to the sustainability and durability of the current ceasefire between Iran and the Israeli regime? And do you see Trump a person to be capable to tame and contain Netanyahu?
Please repeat the last part.
The last part is that, do you see President Trump as a person capable to be taming or containing Netanyahu for further aggressions, maybe?
Thank you. I need to mention a few points about my last comment, which is very relevant to this question. I forget to present the assessment. I said that what were the reasons that the Israelis attacked Iran, but I didn't assess that, okay, whether they achieve their objectives or their assessment or their perception were right. I guess the calculus, the strategic calculus and the perceptions to a large extent were not right, because it did not achieve their objectives. Why? Of course, two other objectives which I forgot to mention is changing the Middle East map, as they had already basically mentioned, and also, as Kazem said, the military edge, keeping the military edge. Somehow there was an erosion of the right perception that they have, or they had, the military edge. They have to reestablish that through war. So these were the objectives. But the strategies they adopted, as I mentioned, the regime change clearly didn't happen. So they were not. That was not a right strategy to achieve their objectives. So far, they have not been able to change the map of the Middle East. And also, yes, they have been able to damage to our nuclear infrastructure and to our missile, to some extent, missile infrastructure as well. But to a large extent, I can say that they didn't achieve their objectives because they accepted the ceasefire. As I have always said, that Netanyahu and the West in general, unfortunately, which hopefully I will address it in my next round of talk, they are merciless actors. If they could have damaged Iran far more, they would have not hesitated even 1 minute. They would have continued. The reasons that they stopped are either of these two. Very much go back to the question now. Either we have to assume both sides, or rather the three sides, are exhausted. President Trump soon understood that the next round of Iranian attack could basically bring a regional war to the reality. And he didn't want it. He didn't want to be blamed for killing of many Americans and also rising the prices of oil and a regional-wide war. So that's why he quickly went for a ceasefire. But Israelis accepted, because as I mentioned, after third, fourth day, we were able to reorganize themselves and to attack them. And the costs were high. So they thought, arguably it is better to go for a negotiated solution to achieve the rest of their objectives. That's one scenario, one theory, one hypothesis. And the other one is, no, they were tired. It is not that they were exhausted. They were tired. They needed to take a breath, both sides, Iran and the Israelis. And to reignite the war as soon as they have been able to refurbish themselves. So if we accept the second scenario, second hypothesis, we have to wait for the war. It's going to come, sooner or later. And they think they have an unfinished job, they have to finish it. Both sides. Thus, diplomacy here is nothing more than deception, buying time, deceiving the others. We and they, both, we are going to do the same thing, depending on the perception. But if no, we think that both sides are exhausted, the costs outweigh the benefits, then we are going to go for a genuine, real diplomacy to negotiate a solution which is acceptable for both sides. Then there is a lot of room, as Saeed mentioned, for maneuvering, a lot of room for coming up with the ideas which would satisfy every side. Since we cannot directly negotiate with the Israelis, and certainly no matter what, any negotiation with the US now involves the Israelis. Because it is, as a number of my colleagues and friends have said, it is a pause in the war now. It is not a ceasefire. It is a sort of a cessation of not hostilities, but rather the war. Thus, if we are going to sit and negotiate with the Americans again, Israel is going to be an important issue. Is it going to be a ceasefire? A written ceasefire with all the elements necessary to it?
Yeah, and by the way, there is also a question that what we do have now is not a ceasefire, it's just a halt.
Yes.
And it has not been based on negotiation.
Exactly.
So the question is that how do you evaluate the
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. It is the
the
cessation of war.
Yeah.
It is, as you mentioned, a pause or a halt. Thus, a ceasefire should be negotiated. But we are not going to negotiate with the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to negotiate that with the Americans. Mm-hmm. So the minimum is going to be a ceasefire. The maximum would be a non-aggression pact between the Iranian and the Israelis, negotiated through Americans and endorsed by the Americans, and also a non-aggression pact with the Americans themselves too. So this remains to be seen. If we accept the second scenario, the scenario of exhaustion, then there is a good possibility for this. But if it is the first one, it is not exhaustion, but it is rather getting a new breath in order to reignite the war again. So then for that scenario, I don't see that one.
Thank you. Professor Sajadpour, you mentioned the remarks by German Chancellor, and you also designed very interesting dichotomy of the dirty work versus the clean work, which is the self-defense by the Iranian nation. How do you evaluate the behavior of the Europeans, the E3 in particular, with regard to the Israeli aggression? And the fact that they are now, some of them, they are threatening to go for a snapback. Is to threaten this snapback under the JCPOA is a credible, lawful, let's say, asset for the Europeans, and how European countries, which are now somehow marginalized in this process, can resume the positive role that they used to have?
Very good question. First of all, I think though Europe had a type of a supportive role for Israel and United States, but there are nuances also in different European players, so it would be not very precise to equate the totality of Europe with one single actor. However, either their silence, some of them were silent, or their support of Israeli aggression remains in the memory of Iranian people. And let me here connect what happened during the last 12 days and European reaction to a long history of interaction between Iran and Europe. And I think Europe at large, especially these three major European players, have had problem with what we call the power of Iran. If Iran is powerful, they hate it. If Iran is weak, they enjoy it. And I think this dilemma is a strategic one. It requires a lot of discussion, but the first point is that what they did is not acceptable and is really making them as partner in this aggression. But the second point is what you mentioned. Europe is weak today as a player. Where is Europe in the strategic calculation of US? President Trump personally, during this course of, let's say, war, even mentioned the weakness of European in a direct or indirect way. They feel they are marginalized globally. They are very tantalized by the issue of Ukraine. They have a lot of problem with the new American administration, though they tried to flatter Trump in this Hague NATO summit and to show a type of solidarity with the United States, but they know that strategically they are not in a situation as a global actor, regardless of the literature that they produce, global UK, global this and global that. So they are weak globally, and they have not been able to deter what they call themselves Russian aggression in European continent. It's now 3 years, and they have not been able to deter. So the third point is their hypocrisy. I'm not going to be sloganistic. I think look at their pronouncements, the way they act, they take position in different issues of human rights. Look what they have done to the issue of Gaza, which has created even tensions inside their own. So there is a hypocrisy on them, and now the issue of snapback is just a pretext to reassert themselves, some of them reassert themselves and as a global player, but I think it's not an easy return to the global stage through a file of this sort. If you want to be a global strategic player, you need more to have on the table. So let me end by saying I think everybody is disappointed with Europe, including themselves. They are not enjoying themselves in a way, psychologically speaking, because of their weakness, and I think even the pronouncement of Israelis, save the Americans. Israelis vis-a-vis Europeans, I think these pronouncements are humiliating. And I think this humiliation of Europe by Israel is something reflective of the strategic positioning of Europe. But whatever I said, it doesn't mean that Europe should be shelved. Strategically and historically, we have to interact with Europe and to assuage the, let's say, the concerns. And I think it's to the interest of our country to have a type of reducing tension plan with all these players and convince them in a way or the other, or at least try to express our views that it is not to their interest to be on the wrong side of history, which is the way of aggression, killing people, innocent people, be in Gaza or be what happened during the 12 days of aggression about our country, against our country.
Yeah, thank you. Professor Dr. Khatibzadeh, based on the same question on the snapback, is it possible, if we do have a holistic approach with regard to the JCPOA under Resolution 2231, to take parts of the JCPOA and to leave another part? Because there are two wings, and on the JCPOA, the nuclear facilities of Iran have been safeguarded and have been legitimized under the deal. Is it possible to take part and to leave part? Is it reasonable?
Look, I think that. Can you hear me?
بلند سر.
Can you hear? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Look, I think it is very important to just follow up what Dr. Sajadpour said and suggested. But I would like to complete the picture. As a person who has been for many years working on Iran-Europe relations and different dimensions of our interactions with Europe, I can tell you that there were those who were debating and arguing that Europeans are not strategically so relevant at the moment. You know, this argument was very much circulating inside and outside Europe, even in some international conferences, such as Munich Security Conference, topics such as restlessness and these sort of things that I remember that it was very kind of old debate that if Europe is strategically relevant anymore or not. I remember in 2018, I was in one of the policy forum in Berlin, in which Foreign Minister of Germany came to the podium and said that Europe should decide whether they are going to be a player in this chess, or they are going to be just a chessboard of mega players of China and United States. And of course, I think it was 2018, he included Russia at that time. I'm not going to comment on this if Europeans are strategically relevant or not. President Trump and the United States has its own, idea, and everybody knows what is their response inside and outside Europe. Inside Iran, there are very much high debates on that. But after this aggression on Iran, which was very pivotal in recent history, now I can claim and I can argue that now I can say from those days that Europe is not morally and culturally relevant anymore, even if they are trying to play a strategic role. Why not morally and culturally relevant? During the Gaza war, of course, they failed a lot, but they tried to have some different voices in some European countries, though they were not quite, impressive, and nobody took them seriously in the Israeli regime. But in these 12 days of aggression, they showed that even they cannot come up with a simple condemnation in the international organizations. They were quite famous of that they are architect of those international organizations, and this international order are based on these European liberal values. They failed on different levels. So the castle that they built, and they were hiding themselves inside that, the castle of human rights, the castle of morality, the castle of international law, the castle of international norms, demolished altogether. Now they are so naked. They are so naked. Nobody believes, even those who right now inside Europe, that they do care about non-proliferation, that they do care about IAEA, that they do care about international law, that they do care about human rights, that they do care about everything that they were arguing for many decades, that they are even architect or party to that. So I think that that was a very pivotal moment for Europe to understand that even if they are trying and struggling to tell to everybody that they are strategically relevant, but culturally and morally they show to the international community that they are done. Even they do not take themselves seriously. And they are trying just to advance their ill political agenda through different means that they do have. This is the real politic. That's it, period. And this is the moment that I would like to raise. And on this, snapback that you raised, maybe it's a strategy card that they would like to play, but they do have the last strategy card in their hand. Either they use it and then they lose it, and they're making themselves irrelevant to Iran's file forever, or they try to act and rethink about their position and trying to be a responsible actor. You remember that the other day, EU Foreign Policy High Representative tweeted and said that this is the time for Iran to start a negotiation to, quote unquote, end its nuclear program. Can you imagine? European Union, based on the JCPOA, was and is still the coordinator of the JCPOA, in which not only they recognize Iran's rights, but also they are committed to that. He's not talking about enrichment. He's not talking about anything. He's talking about ending Iran's nuclear program. So maybe it is out of naivete by her, or maybe it is for many reasons. But we have to look at the words that they're using. We cannot go beyond their words and talk about their intentions. So I think that E3 should understand. Maybe they can play this card. They can, maybe. But this is the last card that they do have in their hand. If they use it, they're going to lose it forever. Their relevance to Iran's file forever. But also let me just comment on two things very quickly, because it deserves, quick comments. One on Qatar that I forgot to tell, that when I said that, United States based in Qatar, which they call it under the US jurisdiction, I mean it, because we were in a very close contact with our very good and close friends in Qatar for many hours before the attack. And one of the reasons that we coordinated, it was not because of the other side of Atlantic, which is just repeating that, is it because of our very good friends in Doha, in Qatar. We know that the US base is under US jurisdiction and they don't have any control over that. But unfortunately, while we do have very close relations with our neighbors in the Persian Gulf, but Americans are misusing all these bases, and we do have intelligence from all these bases, how they have been misused by Americans to start this act of aggression against Iran. And this is the fact that Americans has always tried to use third-party countries to act against our interest. You remember when they assassinated great General Soleimani? They did it in Iraq. This is our policy. This is our principle, that we do not do anything in a third country, doing anything or any confrontation with the United States in other countries. But Americans on the other side, they're doing that in a way that they do everything using the third countries' bases or territories and so on and so forth. So I think that this is the time for everybody in the region to understand that we need a sort of new arrangement, security arrangement, between all the Persian Gulf countries. Many ideas of Hormuz peace endeavor, Mawadda, and the others have been discussed. Call it this or that, talking about high politics or low politics, starting from medium-range issues or very highly important, issues. This is the time. This aggression showed, as our dear panelists said, Israelis are trying to impose their hegemonies over our region. And this is the main goal and the ultimate goal of Israelis. They are not going to stop here. They are going after any other country in the region that has any will or any capacity. And do not forget, Americans know very well that when Netanyahu said that I'm going to change the geopolitics of the region, he meant two things. One was to make Palestine impossible. How? By first remove the territory of Palestine, Gaza or West Bank. And second, by removing the population, the people. So when there is no territory, when there is no sovereignty, when there is no population, three elements of any country, then there is a country possible or not? Definitely not. So what Israelis are trying to do is to making the state of Palestine impossible. The second, of course, is this hegemony that everybody is talking about. This is another reason that everybody should think about this new hegemonic posture by this Israeli regime, which is not abided by any international law and has no red line whatsoever. A regime that can kill 60,000 people, can attack nuclear facilities under safeguard and under NPT, can assassinate off-duty commanders in the middle of night, can attack buildings, civilians, hospitals, and academics, can do every single atrocities that you can imagine. And this is why that everybody has to tame this rogue, reckless, actor in this region. And I think that 12 days aggression on Iran is a ring for everybody who is thinking strategically, and it was a awakening, call.
Yeah, and let me read the question that Sana Alkan from Bloomberg directed at previous remarks. And the question is that you mentioned your response was, the Iranian response was measured in light of the Israeli aggression. Given the attacks by the US and Israeli on your nuclear facilities, infrastructure, and assassination of the military commanders, how do you define an existential threat now? The Iran's account for an existential threat now, based on your remarks. This is the question Sana Alkan from Bloomberg raised to you. Dr. Khatibzadeh, no, Dr. Khatibzadeh, yes, please.
Look, Iran was ready for a long, battle, and it was in the middle of that battle that we received this request for ceasefire. So the war was evolving step by step. We were not, into spillover of the war into region. So the main reason that we tried not to act extensively and respond extensively was to avoid a spillover to the region. The moment that they extended it to the Persian Gulf, they did a very strategic mistake because Iran was ready to respond in a way that Israelis and Americans being regret that they are just attacking our energy facilities. And Professor Hadian said about that. Of course, the assassination was very very bitter for us, but we were in the middle of an aggression, and our military officers and military top generals were ready for a very long war, and they were preparing, many things in that way. So just encapsulate what I say is that based on the assessment of the day, Iran would articulate its response, and this is very clear for those who are quite familiar with military calculations.
Professor Hadian, with regard to the future scenarios, based on the fact that there are many fluctuations and ups and downs with regard to the Trump behavior and statements, every day changes, And there are many paradoxical also remarks raised by Trump himself. And you know that the very first foundation for any kind of negotiation process is a minimum level of trust. How do you see this circumstance, and how you can see any possibility for resuming talks with the United States under this behavior of Trump himself and Trump administration?
Very hard question. But first, I guess I would go for the negotiation. I don't see any reason why not negotiation, no matter who the other side is. I've already repeated that for many years. In fact, even with Trump the first term. And now, same thing. Even I had a discussion or debate, rather, a few months ago, and I said that then, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't negotiate, why we should not negotiate directly. We should not trust the other side in order to engage in a negotiation. Thus, we can engage in a negotiation with the Americans. We can agree on many points, but agreement should be structured in a way that we give A and we take B, reciprocal. It is not going to be a one-phase agreement. For instance, for the other side, the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium at 60% is very valuable and has a strategic value. We should say, and we would say, yes, we are ready to make a deal about it. But the deal is going to be structured that we will ship them away in 4 or 5 installments, which would take 4 or 5 years. At least 1 year of it should be in the next presidency of the United States. So that's the way we will reduce the value of trust. The trust is not going to be all that important. We are not going to trust them. And they are not going to trust us as well. So it all depends on the structure of the agreement, which is important. That's the way of Douglas. But I would like to address 2 other questions, 2 other issues. Like Saeed, I agree that Europe, have said it to Europeans themselves for many years, Europe is strategically irrelevant. Ukraine war proved that. What happened in Iran proved that. What happened when President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA indicated that clearly that Europe is strategically irrelevant. But it doesn't mean that they are politically, economically, whatever, are irrelevant. That's why we still should engage with them. They're politically relevant. But what happened as a result of Gaza particularly, and as a result of this war is, there's 2 theories, let me say both of them. One is what happened the last few days was the final nails into the coffin of normative structure of the West, which emerged after the Second World War. The other one is, the other argument is, it is not a nail to the coffin of this normative structure, but rather it unmasks the role of the European as a torchbearer of these values, that they are not honest torchbearer. But the values are good. The institutions are good. The edifice is good. Thus, it should be given to some other people, other countries, who are more honest and deserve to carry these good ideas. So we should not attack the values. It is true that they are, particularly Europeans, are the most important player in articulation of these norms and values and structures and institutions. But they prove to be not an honest holder of these values.
Okay.
So we should not remove and destroy the values. We should not challenge the values and the institution, but rather we should find more qualified actors in the world scene to carry on these missions. Personally, I'm subscriber to the second one.
Thank you.
And one last thing about the security arrangement, I'm sorry.
Sure, please.
For the region. That's the best time. That's the best time now when we sit and talk. Because I guess the whole region is ready for a security arrangement. Iranians, Saudis, Persian Gulf countries, other Arabs, they are all ready for a new security arrangement. So that's why that's the best time to use it, to articulate sort of arrangement, to come up with a security arrangement which would be acceptable to
even
everyone.
the nuclear issue itself could be a source also for
Exactly.
this synergy among the regional states, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That can be a part of that security
Sure.
arrangement. So a consortium can be a part of it, you know. So there are many things which can include in it, in this security arrangement, but the time is right.
Okay. Well, I've got a question for Professor Sajadpour, and Paolo Cota Ramosino from Pugwash is also waiting to raise a question. So first I ask my question, and then Paolo, you're welcome. Dr. Khatibzadeh mentioned that Iran is a real nation state, and nation state is a composition of nation and state. Yeah. And Iranian nation was the real star, as there is this narrative inside Iran that the real star in this 12 days imposed war was the Iranian nation. Something maybe changed, or something was somehow new, or was, let's say, re-emerging Iranian society. What is your account of this phenomenon?
A very good question. I think it relates to the history, culture, and also the long interactions that has happened in this land. Let me tell you that it's not a secret that Iran is not just a nation state in modern sense. It is also a civilization. It is a civilization state. It is a very deep-rooted historical state and society. And I think what's important, not just about Iran per se, those civilization states, ancient states and societies have proven during centuries and centuries that they may be damaged, but they have a very significant capacity to redefine, reconstruct, and re-emerge again. And this doesn't happen in vacuum. It is because of this set of variables which have been accumulated historically and culturally. So I think what happened in Iran during the last 12 days was a type of, as I said, resurrection of the sense. And I think in this sense, any single variable of social discussion deserves to be included. But two are the most important one. One is this belonging to this land, the sense of nationhood, and the second, of course, is belonging to a religious reading called Shia Islam. Of course, when I say Shia Islam, I mean that this Shia mentality as a culture is also inclusively taking not just the non-Shia Muslims of Iran, even the minorities in Iran have been, official minorities have been impacted by this culture. And this culture is very important in that sense that it gives a sense of meaning, a sense of cohesion, and a sense of understanding, and let me add also a sense of maturity. I think Iranian rebirth or resurrection is fundamentally a very matured sense of not just belonging to the land and to the culture, but also understanding the strategic calculus of the region. I think they all understood that it is not about just a nuclear issue or a missile or whatever. It is about reducing the totality of Iranian power and disintegration. And they also came to this conclusion that it's not none of the business of the others what we have domestically to do. Of course, we have domestically a lot of challenges we have to manage and solve, but it is not the business of the others to somehow claim that they are coming to the rescue of Iran. I think this sense of maturity was very interesting, and I think it was one of the shocking points for strategic thinkers in US and in Israel, and maybe to the region. Let me have a couple points here on the region. I think the region understood Iran in a more matured way, and that's very significant for Iran. They understood that Iranians not just are part of this region, but they are also defending the region. Iran is not, and go to the Arab public opinion, even go to the Arab public leadership.
Sure.
Go to the Turkish society and Turkish leadership. Go to the subcontinent. So Iran stands tall there. And I think this standing tall relates to the Iranian culture, Iranian society, Iranian resistance, but also they understand that their destiny is highly linked with the strategic positioning of Iran. And I think this is a very important normative, psychological, let's say spiritual dimension which cannot be ignored in the strategic thinking. The second point on the region, yes, Professor Hadian and especially Dr. Khatibzadeh mentioned that Netanyahu has a design for the region and so on and so forth. This region is a very interesting region. Interesting in what sense? Many sense, including defying all predictions, but more importantly, defying all social regional engineerings. Look, there have been a lot of social engineering for the region at large to make it completely an American region, to make it completely of this regional side or that regional side. They look at this region with a mechanical, let's say, angle that they can, for example, by deleting this, adding this, they can create a new region. And I think what happened proved that engineering this region, engineering Iran in a new way, is not going to work. And let me end by a very important analytical point which has been the base of this miscalculation resulting into aggression about our country. There started an argument in think tanking and in strategic, let's say, circles that Iran has become weakened, and so it's time to use this. It's about a year that this argument. And I think even they sold this argument to Trump that, Iran is weak and so on and so forth. I think the argument that, of course, we have been facing some challenges regionally. We cannot ignore it, or we cannot ignore what we have been witnessing during these 12 days of aggression. But the assumption that Iran is weak, so we can engineer a new Iran. We can engineer a new region. I think this is all based on a fallacious assumption, and it negates reality, especially the concept of engineering, that you can shift, the social realities, you can create social realities. I think these are proven to be wrong, and I think what's interesting that the region is understanding this. I think this first time maybe during the post-revolutionary era that the Arab world in its totality is understanding Iran, is showing sympathy toward Iran. And I think this is a level of regional maturity and understanding which is one of the unexpected consequences of what's happened. So in response to your question, I have to say in terms that there is a capacity in this country to rebuild itself. And it has happened many times. This time also it happened. Of course, we have also to be concerned that in this resurrection, we have also to manage the difficulties that we have. And by itself, it showed that Iran has a sense of actorship. Let me end that Iran is not an object to play with. In all, even difficult circumstances, Iran has proven to be an actor and remains an actor because of the solid roots that it has.
Okay, very dynamic. Thank you. Well, Paolo Cota, may I have his voice?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Paolo, go on.
Yeah, okay. I think that we, from an international point of view, I can understand fully the idea that the Iranians want to be, in a sense, convinced that Iran is powerful and important. No question about that. But what I'm saying is that if you want to involve the international community, we have to make some different emphasis on problems. And I think the emphasis should be on the issue that we don't want the spread of wars. There are too many wars already around, and we have to go back to a more peaceful environment. And I think that's something that people can understand. I mean, people outside Iran in general. So I think that we should devise some idea of international communication and international cooperation in order to avoid the worsening of the situation. I think that one key point has been in the past that the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was a very good statement, a very good agreement, and this has been destroyed by Trump. And we have to go back to the spirit of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with some modification, and we have to create an international support for this. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action has some key issues. The first issue is the fact that Iran is not going out of the NPT, first. Second, that Iran is in fact allowing inspection and international cooperation about stopping the nuclear activities which can be dangerous. And this implies some international cooperation for the control of nuclear activities. I think that Iran has also the right, absolutely the right, to require the elimination of sanctions and all possible constraints that they are being, in a sense, connected with the problem of nuclear activities. In one way, I think that we should, can we do this in a sense of involving government, say at the European level? I am very doubtful about that. So the only alternative that I see is A, involve countries that in fact are not part of the European environment now, and B, more importantly, create an international non-official movement that can support peaceful solution for the Iranian problems. For the problem related to Iran, it's not a specific Iranian problems. I think then after that, we can also in fact create a strong criticism for what happened to Iran, and that we, as Bagwash, we did that very clearly when Iran was attacked by Israel. Israel is one country which is possessed nuclear weapon, is not member of the NPT, and in fact has been the one which attacked Iran primarily for the activities about nuclear issues. So I think we should create an environment, an international environment, not necessarily connected to state, that can support a peaceful solution and a clear position that Iran will stay out of the creating the possibility of the creating nuclear weapons. And I think that we should discuss about that. I appreciated very much when we had a meeting in Iran involving international participants, including also Americans, and we discussed about the idea that in fact the NPT should be reinforced and the sanction against Iran should be eliminated. I will be very happy to discuss this in the future, try to understand what can be done, but with one clear point: the time is not infinite, and time is not on our side. We have to do that soon. We have to create an environment, an international environment soon, that support the end of all possible wars, including, of course, Iran, and including also the Gaza war, which I think has been important, not to mention Ukraine.
Thank you.
So we can discuss this later on. That's just the beginning of the discussion, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
For having organized this meeting.
Thank you, Paulo. Interesting points. And yeah, we are going to have further online TDF onlines, maybe probably the next week, and we can more elaborate on all those ideas that you raised. But I will ask the panelists, probably Dr. Khatibzadeh, to touch upon part of it. And also, if you wish, there is also a question with regard to the future scenarios, Dr. Khatibzadeh, about the negotiations. Is Iran see any possibility for the resumption of the negotiation with the United States, under what circumstance or what conditions? This is the very last question. And hopefully next week we can have also another round of this online panel also to further elaborate on all those ideas. Also, Paulo raised. And if you wish, Dr. Maybe Madian or Dr. Khatibzadeh.
I think that probably other dear panelists would like also. Hello? Can you hear me?
No.
Not yet. Okay. I think that probably our dear panelists would like also to have their final word. So I will be very short. NPT. There is a resolution passed by our parliament, and that it's obligatory. But there are provisions that based on which Iran's Supreme National Security Council can regulate our relations with IAEA. I think that within that framework, Iran will continue its cooperation, of course, within the framework of those provisions. Regarding NPT, we are signatories to NPT, so this is not for now any debate inside Iran regarding NPT. But on IAEA, because of many of its shortcomings, this is an issue. We have to see how we can accommodate the provisions included in the motion passed by our parliament. On the JCPOA, I think that just considering the non-proliferation aspect of the JCPOA was unprecedented non-proliferation ever negotiated about about any nuclear issue and any nuclear file. I think that Americans, by unilateral withdrawal from the JCPOA, and the Europeans by not being able to compensate this withdrawal and not being able to honor their commitments under the JCPOA, they ruined many aspects of the JCPOA. Still, JCPOA is legally intact. It is based on the resolution 2231, but unfortunately, the sanction removal aspect of the JCPOA has not been implemented by the other side, so Iran decided to reduce its commitment. And it's a long story. Still, there are many potentials, to use within this JCPOA, but Iran was ready. And I think that everybody now confirmed that Iran, with all honesty, was ready to make and bring a new balance with a new agreement with the United States. Unfortunately, they torpedoed that. And by this, I would like to end and answer your question: what is next? What Paolo said, what you said about the possible negotiations with Iran and the United States. I think that diplomacy has been always an option and has been always a principle, with or without war. All wars ended with diplomacy, and this is not a question of if diplomacy is an option or not, but negotiation, which is one aspect of diplomacy, needs conditions to be rightfully implemented. What is right now is missing is the minimum trust we need to enter into any sort of negotiation with the other side. The other side sending many messages that they are ready to get back to the negotiation table, the very table that they themselves torpedoed at and demolished that. We are very clear, we are very consistent in our position that conditions should be met. And the first and foremost condition is that the other side should ensure everybody, international community and Iran, that they are not going to do any new sort of deception. They are not going to misuse these negotiations to advance their ill political will. And more important, they have to come to this conclusion that they cannot achieve the goals that they couldn't achieve through military means and military coercive diplomacy. If there is a genuine will for diplomacy and negotiation, they have to stop this sort of public negotiations and this public statement that they are making about the outcome of the negotiation, which has not yet started. Negotiation meaning a mutual respect based on an equal footing and on an agenda which both sides accept, mutual interest, and a win-win solution without which we cannot enter in a meaningless negotiation. Iran is committed to any sort of meaningful diplomacy, and our foreign minister has said several times, conditions come, Iran is ready.
Thank you. Professor Hadian, any last word?
Just 1 minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Certainly, diplomacy cannot be.
Still is okay.
Can you hear me?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
They have to switch my microphone to you.
Okay. Okay. I mean, we cannot put aside diplomacy. Negotiation, as Saeed mentioned, is a very important element of diplomacy. And hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So diplomacy cannot be put aside. Negotiation, as Saeed mentioned, is a very important element of diplomacy. And no matter what is the intention of the other side, still I would support diplomacy. I would say even if they want to deceive us, so we can deceive them. So We have to engage in a diplomacy, direct talk. We have to engage in a negotiation and in a direct talk. We can assess one another's intention much better rather than through intermediary. And we shouldn't be worried that they're going to deceive us. Certainly, that's a part of the, I'm sorry to say that, that's a part of negotiation too. Rather than publicly, it doesn't matter, we can publicly take a maximalist position, as they take. Maximalist position, we can do the same thing. But let's sit on the table and talk one another and assess our intentions once we are sitting on the table. And who knows, maybe some ideas emerge which would be satisfactory to the other side. What we are going to lose sitting and talking. We shouldn't be worried that the other side is going to deceive us. Certainly they will, and they'll do their best. We do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sajadpour.
Thank you. I think, first of all, I appreciate what Professor Paolo Ramazino said about trying to end this endless war. I would like to really emphasize that West also has elements like Paolo. Activists for peace, for disarmament, for peaceful use of nuclear energy. And I think these peace movement, these activists, these, let's say, institutions are valuable for global peace and security, and I appreciate. Now, with respect to the future, of course, my colleagues mentioned, but let me have my ABC conceptually for the future. A, ambiguity. There are a lot of ambiguities of different unknown variables and known variables, so we cannot talk with, let's say, very precise what's going to happen, and ambiguity is both of positive and negative side. But B, we have balances and imbalances in the region at this juncture. There are some imbalances, some balances. So how this would really be maintained is a question, but some of them are preserved, some are not. However, this concept of balance is very important. But let me go to my final, that is C, that is clarity. If we have ambiguity, if we have imbalances or balances, it is clear that Iran remains an actor. And Iran is not a passive actor, and it is really responding. And as I said, Iran is very cohesive at this juncture. It is clear for us that this cohesion is an asset for our actorship. Second, Iran has capabilities, and capabilities of different dimensions, including military, including diplomatic capability. Right now, our foreign minister is going to visit, I think today, Saudi Arabia after attending the BRICS summit. I think this diplomatic capability is an asset for Iran, and we have other capabilities, including the huge resources of this country, manpower side and materialistic side. And I think the most important element is this confidence. Confidence that we, of course, when we say confidence, we trust in God, and God is giving us this sense of confidence. This confidence shows that regardless of all different hegemonic desires, all madnesses, all irrational and irregular actors, we are going to defend our interests, and our interest is clear. That is to keep our country intact, to secure its border, to secure its nation, and we are sure that God is on our side. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me express my gratitude for our brilliant panelists, as well as the esteemed audience, in-person audience and online audience. It was a very hot and interesting debate, an exchange of views today, and to keep the community of TDF on board, we will try to plan for further online events in coming weeks. Thank you so much. Have a good time.
Thank you.